Straight all day.
You're now tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to occur. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative. What is that? That is the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into a series of frameworks, approaches, insights, strategies, and techniques all underneath the umbrella of one unified philosophy that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is the perfect plan. We're going to talk about the perfect plan. And before we get into that, I'm going to tell you all that every morning I send out this text message that I call the Daily Motivation, free of charge, to everyone who is in my text community. The only thing you have to do to get this text and get this message every single day for free is text me at my number, which is 305-384-6894. Every morning when that message goes out, you as a member of the community will be receiving that message. Secondly, Work on Your Game University is the place where you go to work with me directly. That is the only way. That's the only way to get a direct link to work with me directly. That's the only way to be coached by me. That's the only way to get access to the deepest, richest programs that we have when it comes to mindset, strategy, systems, accountability, execution, discipline, content creation, business, systematizing everything that you're doing, confidence, all of those things, and a whole bunch of other things that I'm not even going to mention here because the list would be too long. All of that is at workonyourgameuniversity.com. So I'm not going to give you 30 different places to go. I'm going to give you one place to go, one option, one step, workonyourgameuniversity.com. So now with that said, and by the way, the links to both of those are listed down below in the show notes to today's episode, as always. Now, today we're going to talk about creating a plan that will absolutely produce the success that you want with no exceptions. That's what this is about, the perfect plan. You want to produce success. You want to achieve your desired outcome, whatever it happens to be. All you have to do is follow the steps I'm going to share with you here today. This is a perfect plan. And when I say perfect, let me just define that word perfect so everyone knows what we're talking about here. Perfect is defined as, it's not giving me the definition. The definition of the word perfect is having all the required or desirable elements, qualities, or characteristics as good as it is possible to be. That is the definition of perfect. That's a great definition. As good as it is possible to be. That's what the word perfect means. Okay, you all ready for the perfect plan? Good, let's get to it. Point number one. Topic once again is the perfect plan. All right, here's the kicker. Things will never be perfect. Things will never be perfect. Remember that definition. As good as it is possible to be. Things will never be as good as they could possibly be. There will always be something. People, it is impossible for a human being to be perfect because we are mere mortals. And since everything that we have around us, at least the man-made things that are around us, like our buildings, our cars, our clothes, our ideas, our execution, our processes, our thoughts, our words, all of those things are created by man. None of those things, nor the men who created them, and when I say man, I mean humans, can ever be perfect. Why? Because we are all imperfect. Circumstances will never be perfect. You will never be perfect. I will never be perfect. Since things will never be perfect, you should never expect to have a plan that is perfect. What you can perfect, however, is your execution of the plan that you do have. So whatever plan you have, you can be perfect in your execution of it. Execution just means getting the job done regardless of the circumstances or anything that the opposition that may be in your way, trying to create friction from you achieving your outcomes. So what is the difference here? What's the difference you're saying, Dre? And how can you execute perfectly? Let me tell you. Difference is that execution means making adjustments as you go, as necessary, because you will need to make adjustments, because circumstances can change from moment to moment and day to day. We all know this. So making your adjustments as you go. And once you have a sound plan in place, understand a sound plan, not a perfect plan, but a sound plan, which means you have considered the contingencies and the possibilities of the plan that you are working on, and you'll be able to make your adjustments as necessary. And your plan is based on, when I say your plan is sound, it means it's based on, to the best of your knowledge, you thought about how things could go. All right, and I'm looking for a good definition of sound. They don't have it in here. I don't know why they don't have it in here. There should be one under adjectives, but let me see if I can find the adjective definition of sound. They don't have it in here for what. Oh, here it is. Sound means in good condition, not damaged, injured, Another one is based on reason, sense, or judgment. That's the definition I'm looking for, the adjective version, because you got verb, you got noun, you got adjective when it comes to the word sound. Means it's based on reason, sense, or judgment. When you have a plan that is based on those things, reason, sense, and judgment, then you go to work on that plan, knowing that it's not going to be perfect. That's why we don't call it perfect, we call it sound. Then that plan should factor in an expected outcome as a general rule over time. And as long as you execute, again, your outcome is not guaranteed, but it is expected over time, which means if you execute on it 100 times, you can say at 88 times out of 100, I'm going to get the outcome that I desire, or at least whatever amount of times that make the most sense for you. All right, so that's what it means to be, that's what it means to execute. And execution is one of the key hallmarks of being a professional. Being a professional does not mean you get it right every time, but it means you get it right most of the time, and you can reasonably expect to get it right almost every time that you go out, and people can expect that of you every time you show up and perform. That's why people are willing to count on you, depend on you, and thusly, as a professional, by definition, they're willing to pay you. That's how you can make money, because people know what they're going to get from you on a consistent basis. Again, consistent does not mean guaranteed, but it means most of the time. All right, more times than not. That is what it means to have a sound plan. That's what it means to execute. Point number 2. So your perfection here is not in the always getting the exact same outcome, but it is in your execution. We know that we're going to execute the same way every time, given our best knowledge and best judgment and best reason. If we execute the same way every time, this is the outcome we can expect to get over a statistically significant number of executions. Everybody follow me? Good. Point number 2. Today's topic, once again, is the perfect plan. Number 2. The perfect plan is to always be ready to move, change, adapt, and adjust based on the feedback you're getting from your efforts, and all of that feedback compared against the baseline of your desired outcomes. Let me say that again, because that's a long sentence. Perfect plan is to always be ready to move, change, adapt, and adjust based on the feedback you are getting from your efforts. That means you're looking at what you're doing and saying, okay, what's happening here? You're assessing the feedback, and then you're taking that feedback and you're comparing it against the baseline of what you want to achieve. So you're looking at what is happening versus what you want to happen, and you make your adjustments based on the delta between what's actually happening and what you expected to happen. So if that gap, and delta just means the gap between your expectations and reality. And the bigger that gap is, usually the more frustrated or disappointed we become in life. And the smaller that gap is, usually the more happy and satisfied we are. And again, this does not mean perfection. It just means based on your expectations. And what have we talked about here on the show in the past? If you haven't heard me say it, maybe you have, but you forgot. In the long run of life, you always get your expectations, and people usually live up to or down to the expectations set before them. So whatever expectations you set of yourself, which are based on your goals, and successful people always set goals, when you set your goals of what you want to achieve in life, those are a reflection of your expectations. Holding those expectations in your mind, you go out into the world and you do your thing, whatever your thing happens to be, or things. Then you look at the results from the things that you do, compare them to the expectations that you have, i.e. the goals that you have set, look at the difference between the two, the reality and the goal. Then you ask yourself, what changes do I need to make based on the difference between these so that I can actually get to my goal? Or do you adjust the goal to match what you're getting? I would suggest you adjust your actions to get the goal, not just the goal to match where you're at, because then you're unless you happen to be outperforming your goals. Now that's the one exception, but if you're not performing up to your goals, I would suggest that you change your actions and your input so that you can actually get to the goal rather than changing the goal to match the results. Okay, because then you're lowering the goal. You don't want to do that. So if you're not sure how to do this comparison, I just laid it out for you, but if you're not sure, because most people are not intuitively knowledgeable of this, that's fine. Tap into someone who does understand how to do it. Borrow their brains. In other words, use their systems, their processes, their thoughts, their ideas, whatever they have to share. Borrow their brain so that you're not wasting your most valuable resource, which is your time, trying to figure this out, or even worse, not figuring it out and just doing things randomly and hoping that things work, which is what most people do their entire lives. All you have to do is borrow another person's brain. Beautiful thing about the internet, and the internet is not all perfect, but one of the great things about the internet is that we can borrow the brains of other people very easily. And what's even better than that is that you don't have to do this in some type of devious, covert type of way. People who have brains to spare, and when I say brains to spare, it doesn't mean that they're necessarily smarter than you. What I mean by that is they know things and they have figured things out, and they want to help other people with these things that they know and the things that they have figured out. You can borrow another person's brain because they want you to borrow their brain, and you can solve a lot of problems a lot quicker and much more efficiently and effectively using another person's brain than you can trying to do everything by yourself. Does everybody understand what I just said? That was a mouthful, but I want to really make sure that you get that. So rewind the last 30 seconds and listen to that again to make sure that you caught it. Borrowing another person's brain is the most efficient and effective way to achieve an outcome other than you already knowing the answer to the question on your own. You don't know the answer to the question on your own. You have to think about whether you know the answer or not. That means you don't. Borrow another person's brain. Do not try to do everything by yourself. People who have brains to spare are actively, openly, and aggressively making their brains available to other people. What do I mean when I say that? That means these are people who write books. These are people who sell courses. These are people who do speaking engagements. These are people who are doing TED Talks. These are people who host podcasts. These are people who go on social media and they share what they know with an audience of people who they may not know, just to let them know, hey, I know this thing. This could help you. If you have this problem, use this. If you think this, think that. If you have this issue, how about this? If this is something you're thinking about, look at it this way. These are people who are actively telling you, I have brains to spare. Use what I know instead of you having to figure it out on your own. This is one of the great benefits of the internet. And this is one of the main reasons why, one of the main reasons how you should be utilizing the internet. Not on time wasting stuff. I talked about this in an episode a few days back where I talked about who I do not want in my audience. These are people who use the internet to waste time to look at other people's lives and live vicariously through them. That's a waste of time. Instead, you should be using the internet to look for people who already know what you need to know and using their brain. That's what you should be doing. Use your time to a great effect by borrowing other people's brains again and making it available. Remember, we're in the collaboration era. And you don't have to know a person personally to collaborate with them. If somebody writes a book, you read it, you take something that they said in chapter 7, you apply it to your business and you get a result from it. That is an effective collaboration between you and that person, even though you and that person may never meet. That is a collaboration. So borrow the brains of other people. They are asking you to do it. Take advantage. Point number 3. Today's topic, once again, we're talking about the perfect plan. Number 3, plans do not work. People work. So I teased today by telling you the topic was the perfect plan. Here's the thing, plans don't work. A plan does not work. Any of you have a plan of anything you want to achieve in life written down right now? Any of you got a written down plan of anything? You have goals written down, that's a plan, because that's your future success goals. Any of you have a plan for how to handle a customer service issue? Somebody calls your company and they have a question or a challenge or a need. Those are our plans. If any of you have a plan of anything written down on paper or digitally, I want you to look at that plan and I want you to understand something. If you just leave that plan sitting there on your document or on that piece of paper or on the table, the plan does absolutely nothing by itself. The plan just directs people, that's you and I, as to what to do. Plans do not work, people work. All we need to do, the humans, is execute on our plans and make adjustments along the way, because no plan is going to be perfect from the beginning. Again, even though it may feel perfect, may look perfect, it's not going to be perfect. Even the plan that is perfect from the beginning will need to be changed because circumstances may change from the time that the execution of the plan was first begun. Our jobs is to continually adjust, making sure we are measuring our actions, again, against our desired outcomes. That's the work. The work is to execute our plan, look at the outcomes, measure it against the desires. That's the hard work right there. That's the work right there. So anybody didn't catch it, that's what it is. Plans don't do this for you. This is what you have to do. You have to look at the outcome. You got to compare it to the desire, the expectation, and then make adjustments. I often speak to people who tell me they have the right plan or they need the right plan in order to achieve their outcome. But again, understand, real life always alters the lab test. So whatever you thought, however you thought it was going to go when you first got started, it usually doesn't go that way. But as long as you continually make adjustments and you're paying attention, you're watching the outcomes, because remember, we're in a results-based business, so you should always be watching the outcomes, which is another word for results in this case. You should always be looking at the outcomes and asking yourself, all right, how does this match up against what I thought was going to happen? And if you don't like your answer to that question, that's when you figure out, you start going to fact-finding mode, you become a detective, you figure out what actually caused this, and you make your adjustments as necessary. So all that said, let's recap today's class, which is the perfect plan. Talking about a plan that will absolutely produce the success that you want with no exceptions. I gave it to you. Let me recap it. Number one, understand that things will never be perfect. People will never be perfect. Circumstances will never be perfect. Why? Because human beings are mere mortals. We are all imperfect. So your job is to have a sound plan, which is based on reason and judgment, not a perfect plan, that factors in expected outcomes as a general rule over time. Again, not a guaranteed outcome. Number two, perfect plan is to always be ready to move, change, adapt, and adjust based on the feedback you're getting from your efforts, again, compared to your expectations. So you must have expectations in order to compare it to something. So you don't have any expectations, nothing to compare your outcomes to. So don't waste your time trying to figure everything out, even when you realize there's an adjustment that needs to be made. Instead, borrow the brains of other people who have already figured out the problem that you have right now. Number three, plans do not work, people work. All we do is execute on our plans. So the plan should be doing more work than we are. Your plans should work harder than you do. All you have to do is follow the system that your plans laid out, and then look at the outcomes. This is work. Look at the outcomes of your executions, and then make adjustments as necessary. So I often talk to people who tell me that they have the right plan or they need the right plan in order to achieve their outcome. But no matter how great your plan is, real life always alters the lab test. Things never go exactly as they were expected to go. You just got to be ready to make your changes and adjustments as necessary on the fly while you're still executing with what you have left. With that said, text me and let me know you want to get the daily motivation for free every morning straight to your phone. My number is 305-384-6894. And workonyourgameuniversity.com. When you want to work with me directly, you want to be coached by me directly, you want to take your business and your life, your personal and professional lives where they deserve to be and get them there with a baseline of solid mindset, then put the strategies on top, the systems to execute the strategies, and the accountability to make sure all of this stays working, go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. Work on your game. Dre all day.